We're now offering a 2-day and a 3-day option as well as the 5-day option. Takes a bit of pressure off people. It's not just the expense, but it's also the time involved. That's what I appreciate. But if you want the proper full experience with the 5 projects, etc., then the 5 days, I mean, what's 5 days out of your lifetime? That's how I look at it. So I think that and the other reason, if you've got any sort of hardcore questions you want to ask about carving that you can't resolve on your own, you've got 2 people here who know a lot about carving and are both very good at it in the classical style as well. And though you do more contemporary work, don't you, Olivia, with your relief,
Yep.
with your screen printing, etc. And then I think if we're lucky, Mary will do a little sharpening demo for people who want to learn a little bit more about gouges and stuff. Whatever's possible. This is an opportunity to ask questions. So please ask questions because I can't read minds. No. Though my border collie can, but I can't. So I'm going to hand over to Mary to speak a little about herself. Olivia will speak a little about herself, and then we can get into the discussion about the workshops and stuff. I'm actually double booked here, and it's my bad. I had someone to cover me because I run classes here. So I'm going to be in and out a little bit, but you don't want to talk to me anyway. You want to talk to Mary or Olivia. So over to you, Mary May.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. I'm also hosting, so I've got to kind of keep an eye on if other people come in. So hopefully I won't get too distracted.
Olivia can mediate, yeah.
Thanks, John.
Well, good to meet all of you. And let's see a little bit about myself. I have actually been carving now almost 35 years. And I actually ended up really kind of falling in love with carving when I was over in England, and I traveled around Europe and just absolutely fell in love with the carvings in the cathedrals and the castles and, all of that very decorative detail that was just amazing. And I thought there's absolutely no way I would ever be able to do something like that. This was all done 300 or 400 years ago, and it wasn't done anymore. And so it was a little bit of a dream that I wasn't sure was achievable at the time, but I really wanted to. If I had an opportunity, I would. And I ended up going back to Minneapolis at the time and living there for a while and finding a Greek master carver, Konstantinos Papadakis. And if you've ever been inside either a Russian or a Greek Orthodox church, the insides are just completely covered with painted icons and then surrounded with these carvings, what they call Byzantine style carvings, beautiful, just scrolling vines. And so I studied with Konstantinos for about 3 years and as much as apprenticeships are happening now, it was as close to as close to apprenticeship as you can get in these days. So I studied with him for 3 years. Then I had an opportunity to go over to Greece to study and ended up studying there and working actually with a carver that he actually grew up with. So sadly, my teacher just passed away in March. He was 88. And he was still carving like up until probably 3 months before he passed away. But so I studied, and I had an opportunity to go to England and study at the City and Guilds. So what I was doing was really just kind of doing my idea of a journeyman, of, the journeyman process of going around and trying to learn as much information, different techniques from different carvers, just sort of like, grabbing as much as I possibly could, because knowing that there was really a very limited amount of information, a very limited amount of those master carvers that are still available to teach. And so I just really tried to find as much as I could. Let's see. Then I just started taking on commissions and not saying no to anything that came through my door. I got laid off from my job, which I was really, really excited about because they gave me severance pay and I could just sit there and, go study some more. And from that point on, I haven't had a normal job in my life. So I'm perfectly happy with. Kind of my career ends up being more a sort of a combination of commissions. Right now, I'm doing this amazingly huge, very deep fireplace mantle. If you're familiar with Grinling Gibbons, the 17th century English carver, it's kind of in that style of just this heavy layered, and it's like blowing my mind actually. So I'm working on that. So commissions. Then I also started, and coming in the next week, it will be 14 years I've had my online school, which is all video based. And then also I travel and teach, like what I'm going to be doing coming to Australia, and teach for, a weekend or a week long. And so it's a nice balance. And, actually, when I started carving, I was sort of wondering whether when you take something on as that you love to do, and I was crazy passionate about carving. I mean, I would every second of the day I would think about what I was going to carve when I was not in my shop. And when that was when I had a real job still, and I was just constantly thinking, what am I going to do when I get home? What am I going to carve? And anyway, it was kind of obsessive. And but yes, where was I going with that? So then I ended up actually about 7 years ago, I wrote my first book. I say my first book because carving the acanthus leaf. I actually mentioned that one time to when my husband was in earshot, and he said, "You mean there's another one?" I think it was more painful for him to for the experience than myself. Um, but all right, let's see. What else is there? I can't think. I sort of lost track of rambling. This is what I do. I ramble. So yes, basically, really, really excited to come to Australia. So I will tell you what, I will hand it on to Olivia if you want to share your story.
Hi everyone. Thank you so much for coming today. So my name is Olivia. My introduction to carving was quite different to Mary's. In high school, woodwork was my favorite subject. So I just went and studied furniture design and construction at RMIT. Unfortunately, I hated that. But on the plus side, I did meet my husband, even though we didn't realize it at the time. But I ended up not finishing there and I left because I just loved making everything. And I went and studied prop making and scenic art for theatre and film up at NIDA in Sydney. And in my final year there, I actually had to like hand carve and research a rocking horse for my masterwork. And I just absolutely fell in love with the process. We were given 6 months and a budget and had to teach ourselves all the steps to a completely new project. And I was given a rocking horse and kind of off I went. And then I worked a year and a half in props and sets and it wasn't for me. And I was like, what do I do? I loved that time I made that rocking horse. So then I left Sydney, moved to regional Victoria, and started up my business making and restoring rocking horses. So for a very long time, the only thing I could carve was a rocking horse. And I was sort of trying to teach myself through YouTube videos other other carving skills because I wanted to sort of get more into the decorative stuff. I was looking at images and visiting places and falling in love with it, but didn't really know how to expand. And I was trying to find classes particularly in like Melbourne and Victoria, but definitely within Australia, and couldn't really find anything for that style of carving I was interested in. And I was fortunate enough, I'd followed Mary on YouTube, as anyone who's trying to learn how to carve from YouTube does. And I received a fellowship from the International Specialized Skills Institute, and I used that money to go spend a week with Mary in her workshop. And it was honestly like transformative. It took my carving from like here to like way up here. I just learnt like all the basic building blocks and skills to expand upon. And we just had a great time, didn't we, Mary?
We did. Looking forward to it again.
Yeah. And I think it might have been in 2018, maybe 2017. Um, and now my work comprises of sort of 50% rocking horses still, which I love. I've lent more heavily into the restoration side because I love all that really old, gorgeous family history that comes with the horses. And then the other half of my work is sculptural wood carving, either my own designs or for commissions. And here we are.
Okay, well, I think I basically have a list of things that we're interested in talking about. You wanted to hear about this these classes that we're going to be teaching. And I've got some of the examples of the carving. So yeah, so the two classes, August 11th through 15th in Melbourne, and then August 18th through 22nd, and that's in Brisbane. And we both are going to be teaching this class. We're both going to be there. And I think that we have different approaches. We have different things to offer when you do sort of a teamwork teaching. I think that's a lot of fun because you get different approaches from different experiences. And so that's always quite an adventure. And basically, it is a beginning. Both of the classes are similar, all right? And I'm just going to talking about one class rather than both, but basically, it is a beginner class, but we're kind of setting it up because it's a relatively small class. We're setting it up so that if you are an experienced carver and you want to work on something of your own, or we can provide a more advanced project for you, and we can kind of help you through some of the more challenging aspects of the carving. But so that's an option. But basically, it's a beginning class, and we are going to start with like the very basics. Like this is a chisel, and this is how to hold it, and all the very, very basics. How to sharpen tools. We're going to start out with like a lesson on grain direction because that is really the thing that you have to sort of get your head around and if you get that right at the very beginning, you can kind of tackle it, and then everything else is based on that, and everything else gets to make a little bit more sense. Why did
And
that?
hang on, I'm just going to jump in, Mary. I will say, as somebody who has been a student in that grain direction lesson, like mind blowing and game changing. Makes Once you get that down pat, everything else just flows so much easier.
Yeah, it is amazing. It's the first thing that my teacher had me do was an actual carving a donut. And what it is basically it's a very simple shape, but there are certain directions you can and cannot go just with wood splitting. And unfortunately, sometimes you just have to sort of split some wood out, and then you think, note to self, I won't do that again. So sometimes that ends up being the best lesson. But I've also broken a lot of things, so I can say, okay, caution there, be careful, be careful. But I wanted to show you some of the projects we are going to be working on. And so one is, hang on, I got some of these things here. So this is basically it's a rose. It's also in Charleston, South Carolina, where I actually was originally from. This is a camellia, but a rose and a camellia are kind of the same thing, basically a bunch of overlapping petals. And this, believe it or not, is going to be one of the first projects. And it looks pretty complex, but if you just go like step by step by step process, it's really going to be easy to achieve it. And that's exactly what we're going to do is do like a step-by-step process. I show the step and then you go and do it. I show a step and you go and do it, show a step, okay? And not like throw you in the deep end and say, here, carve this and see what happens. It's going to be very structured and very guided. And that's one of my favorite beginning projects because it looks really, really complex. But then when you're done with it, you're like, wow, that's awesome. So another project is carving two oak leaves. I'm trying to angle this so the light sort of reflects or the shadows. So two oak leaves and little acorns. Whoops, upside down, sorry. Um, and just relief carving, lowering down the background at a slight angle, and then doing a little bit of overlapping and shaping on the leaves themselves. It's just a really kind of a sweet design. But again, it's considered beginning, but each one is going to sort of build on the skills and just challenge you a little bit more. And let's see, we got a couple more here. The shell, we're starting to get into more symmetrical. All right, so whereas the leaves, if a little corner sort of breaks off on the little oak leaf, it's like, oh, let's do a redesign adjustment and, you can work it. Not so with a shell. A shell is a little bit more critical on the, the precision of it. So, again, just completely different skill techniques and skill building. And this is a really fun project because it's actually two. All right. Oops, let's try to get this. Okay, these are calla lilies, and they're exactly the same design, but we're going to carve them two different techniques. One very shallow relief, all right, and which is going to basically be kind of tricking the eye into seeing, or the illusion really, that it's a lot deeper. And there's a lot of really fun tricks with that. And then we're going to do one like this, which is basically a much higher relief and a little bit more sculptural. But what's fun about this is exactly the same design, but really quite different process of learning the different techniques of the high relief and low relief. But we're going to go over the sharpening of tools, and then just see where things go. I like to, on these 5-day classes, I like to leave, I don't know, time wise, sometimes it's hard to figure it out sometimes with classes, but I like to leave the last day for you to carve something you want to do. All right, you spend 4 days and you build the skills, you probably have some idea of what you're wanting to do, what direction you're wanting to go. So I really hope that that's going to work out, that on Friday, that you'll be able to work on something that you particularly want to work on. So hopefully we'll get through all those projects. So anyway, Olivia, if you want to share.
Yeah, all I have to say is don't be fooled looking at the projects and thinking, I think there's two ways people can either look at them. They look at it and go, that is so simple. Why do I need to, why am I, carving leaves when I want to carve something far more complex?
Mhm.
I think in carving, you can push carvings to such different levels. And then on the flip side, if you're looking particularly at that camellia, because I remember this is a thought I had when I first was given that camellia project, I thought, oh my God, there is so much here.
Mhm.
How do I even know how to start this and break it down? And that's probably one of the most valuable skills I learned in my time with Mary, is actually stepping back and assessing a project and really just breaking it down into little bits. And I suppose the old carving joke that people love to say to me more than I love to say it, when they go, how do you cover blah, blah, blah? And the response is, you just take away everything that isn't
Yeah.
what you want. And it is a reductive form of working, which is really beautiful because you're really guided by the material, whereas most other forms of sculpture are additive. So like clay, you can add on. And I think getting your head around how the reductive process works and being able to break a project into manageable steps is like beyond valuable in my mind.
Yeah. No, that's great. And the whole step by step, do this step first, then this step, then this step. And as we go through those steps, Olivia and I have made the mistakes. We've gone
Yes.
through and said, I did that part first, and then I did that part, and now I have to completely redo that first part. And so, we've already gone there. We've already made those mistakes. So that's where, walking you through very, as I said, methodical step by step, and let you finish that step and then come on. And also we're going to go through about how to think through the process of why you do this first rather than that first, and how that might interfere with that step of the carving. And a lot of things might be redundant. So there's just really there's a lot of thinking and in the process.
And I think that is such an important part because I think we've all done in like different mediums as well, making classes, and you learn how to make that thing.
Mhm.
And if you were to go home, you were like, well, I did that silversmithing course, for example, but all I now know how to do is make that exact ring again. I'm not really sure why certain steps were glossed over, things were sped up, the mental process behind it. Whereas this series of projects, you will learn. It won't just be, I now know how to carve a camellia. You'll now be able to look at complicated shapes because there is a lot of layers, and you'll learn how to apply that mental process to attack. I should probably use a nicer word than attack. To gently approach your own projects.
Yeah. No, that's great. And I think what I tell people is there's whether you're wanting to do sculptures, whether you're wanting to do relief carvings, whether you're wanting to carve animals, or whether you're wanting to do decorative carving, everything that we're going to be going over in the class is going to direct you to whichever. It's not locked in. There's enough variety in the projects that it will kind of open up the skill for whichever direction you want to go. So, are there any questions?
It sounds all really good to me, Mary May and Olivia. Fantastic. I like the idea of that you have to break down shapes, and this is what I'm looking for. Like I've started carving, but I just don't know quite how to approach it. And like you, Olivia, I've done lots of YouTube videos, but yeah, it's approaching the carving, and that's what I'm going to find really interesting.
It sounds like, Anna, you're at exactly the point I was um, before I before I went and spent a week with Mary.
I know, I'm really
So I know
excited.
the feeling. And there is like a limit to how far I think self-teaching and video teaching can get you. Yeah. So
Yeah,
I know how
that's
you
exactly how I feel. I need someone to say, look, this is you're heading in the right direction. So, or you're making these mistakes. And also the thinking bit. That's what's really exciting for me.
And
I think that's probably the most valuable part,
Mm,
personally.
yeah, the whole process of, step by step, it'll give you that guidance. It'll just sort of steer you. And so sometimes if you because I started before I actually met Konstantinos Papadakis, I basically had a chisel and a big rubber mallet and a piece of wood, and I just started hacking away at it because I knew I wanted to carve, but I had no clue what I was doing. And the whole thing about it is, I mean, at that point, that's when I determined that I desperately needed a teacher. And unfortunately, when you start, and sometimes videos can sort of lead you in a direction, but you don't know exactly. It won't catch you if you're going in the wrong direction sometimes. Okay, so but an in-person class like this is going to be saying, okay, hold up, try this, or move this direction, and it'll stop you before you start getting these lovely habits that are so easy
that's
to.
what I'm looking for. Exactly. Because I'm sure I've developed some bad habits. So,
We all do, unfortunately. Especially especially because it does sound like we started our journey in quite a similar way, Anna.
Yeah. Yeah, it's exciting.
Really.
Wonderful. Well, okay, so let's just say what my list here. So we're good. No more questions about the actual class itself, or anything like that. Okay. So we're going to do a demonstration on sharpening if you want to see that. Let me get my video set up. I think we can probably do this where that's like big screen. I don't know if it's showing up on.
Yeah, your stone's on the big screen.
Okay. Okay. So, okay. Hold on a second. All right. So for the sharpening, now I use diamond stones. I don't know what kind of stones you have at the workshop there, do you, Olivia?
John has an array of water stones, and I believe he's got some diamonds as well.
Okay. It doesn't matter, it doesn't matter really what stones you use, but what I try to do is I stay with around a 1200, which is really going to remove a lot of metal, and then I move to an 8000, which will really refine it and kind of polish it. And so whether it's Arkansas stone, whether it's a water stone, whatever it is, kind of, that's basically the thought process behind that. Two stones. And this is really if it's just simply touching up, maybe you got a little nick on the edge of the blade or something like that. I mean, if it's like dropped on a concrete floor and you got a big gouge out of it, you might have to start with a little bit more aggressive one. But
you start with swearing first.
Sorry?
I said you start with swearing.
Yeah. And then go shopping for another tool. Okay, so what I do is I start with a 1200, and one thing that I like to do when I start is, this is actually, oops, hold on a second. I had another tool that I was going to, this is just a Sharpie, basically a water, what do they call that? Waterproof anyway. Marker. And this, if you've ever used this for any kind of tools, it's very, very helpful. And it just kind of helps you set it against the stone. And it's pretty accurate. And it just kind of gives you clues of what's going on. And oops, I'm not sure what happened there. Fancy. Okay, so I don't have my water squirt bottle, so I'm just going to use this. Okay, so with the diamond stones, I use water. They also say you can use Windex, but I just use water. Generally, with the oil stones, my Greek teacher started me out with oil stones, and I had to use extra virgin olive oil. So, of course, Greek. Okay, so now what, you know what? Bear with me a second. I want to back this up a little bit so you can kind of see position. Okay, so you can kind of see, 1 second. It's gonna re-angle it. Okay, so basically I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna rock the tool, all right, until I can feel that flat. All right, sometimes if there's not a flat bevel, it's a little harder to feel that, but I just very gently rock it until I can kind of feel a little click. Once you feel that, wrap your wrist around the handle, all right, and then just what I try to do is actually move my body side to side, all right, and then at the same time, the wrist rotates. Now this is it's a number 7. It's got a curve to it. All right. I just wanted to use one that has enough of a curve so you can see the motion. But all right, and just move side to side. And as I'm rotating, all right, now look back at it. And it's hard to tell actually. Yeah, it's hitting kind of the heel, so it's a little bit low, right? You see how that kind of gives you a clue?
Mm.
Okay. And again, rock it, and I'm going to lift it just a little bit higher. So at first, what I do is I do just kind of a light move back and forth just to make sure that it's in the right position. That's much better. You see that? Okay. Pretty much the whole background. All right. Now, once you know you're in the right position, then you sit here and you do this for about 4 or 5 hours. We don't have a lot of time. No, I would say with these diamond stones, you could probably get down to the point where you get a little wire edge, and maybe 10 minutes to get to that point. So I used to use Arkansas stones, and my teacher actually ended up giving me a tool that had like a thickness of metal on the end of it. And he said, "Here, take it home." And it was like one of those sort of wax on, wax off things of like, okay, we're testing her to see how much she really, really wants to become a carver. And I spent 20 hours sharpening that tool. And I still have that tool, and I still have it, and it's still sharp. But I don't think it won't take that long. Trust me. Okay, so you can kind of see what's going on with that. All right. Can you see that?
Mm.
Okay. So you want to do this. Now we're going to fast forward. You want to rotate it. Actually, just a few other things. If you over rotate it, right, like that, what's going to happen is you're going to actually soften those corners, and you're going to lose those corners. There are some times when you might want to not have those corners. There are tools that have kind of softened corners for just different techniques. But I generally wouldn't do that. If you look at the shape of this is called a fishtail. And I really wouldn't do that with the fishtail, just because the whole purpose of these fishtails is you want to have those sharp corners to kind of fit into tight corners. So if you round those, it's going to kind of defeat the purpose of them. Okay, so if you under rotate, all right, and you don't reach those outer corners, then what you're going to do is you're going to have this little dip in the center, and you're going to have these high corners. Okay. All right. And then you do this until you get a little wire edge along the inside edge. Right. But sometimes it'll show up on one side and not the other. So you really want to make sure that it is going across the whole edge. And just a couple of years ago, a friend of mine got me one of these, and it just is such an eye opener. I mean, it is like one of these things that just says, "Oh, it's amazing," but you can't see it on the camera, but you can look. So if you're having struggles with trying to figure out what is going on, it's this little thing that you can look right at it, and you can find exactly what's going on. There's so many times when you're looking at it, it's like, I don't understand it. I did everything that I was supposed to do, but you take this and it will just open up a whole world, maybe a world you never wanted to know. But you can look at it and find out what's happening with the edge. You can see if there's a little wire edge or burr along the inside. And yeah, I would recommend, if you're going to be doing a lot of sharpening, it really, really helps. I spent the first almost 30 years not having one of these things. And I did a lot of guessing. And now all of a sudden I'm like, oh, that's what that was all about.
What magnification is that, Mary?
Good question. It says 20x, and
Oh,
then
20 times,
that's
yeah.
21 millimeter.
Yeah.
So I've got one, I think, that's like 35. But yeah, it's pretty impressive. We'll show you a whole new world. Okay, so let's see. Let's just do fast forward here. We're gonna do, all right, rotate that, and then you're gonna have this little wire edge along the inside. And then you're gonna move from the 1200 to the 8000, or whichever is the finest stone that you have. And you're gonna basically do the same thing for the diamond stones. I usually go maybe 3 or 4 minutes and do exactly the same position. And again, look back at it because there's always a possibility of you setting it wrong or different position on there. So just keep looking at it, and it might even be a good idea to put a marker back on it when you move to the next stone so you can really make sure that everything is in the right position. Okay, so once you go past the 8,000 and it's nice and shiny. Okay, like I said, this like at one of those cooking shows, take it out of the oven and there we go. And now I've got to find my little stones. They go right there. Okay, so here's a couple different slip stones. All right, I like to drop things and break them. So there's one.
Oh.
And but if you can see that, this got a curve on that, and it's got a corner on that. This fits into V-chisels, and this is fits the curves. And obviously doesn't fit it exact, so you're gonna have to kind of go around and kind of crawl it along. All right, but the best way to do this is I like to be able to see it. Okay, so rather than put it down there for the camera, but basically I hold it like this with my fingers so I can really get some leverage, and then a little bit of water on it. Now, normally these are Arkansas stones, so normally you'd use oil, but since I'm using water on the water stones, I'm just going to stick with water. So I like to do this, and I like to look down at it to make sure that it makes contact with the edge. Okay, if it's just like that, it's kind of unknown. Oh, sorry. If I do that, it's a little unknown of, where it's hitting. So look like that and look down at it. And sometimes you can see a little shadow. That means that it's probably not making contact. All right. Now, what you're doing is taking that little wire edge and you're pushing it to the back side. And then you can go back on the stone and just maybe, 5, 10 times back and forth. Not enough so that you're going to recreate the wire edge, just enough so you're pushing it to the inside now. All right, and then do the same thing back. Right, so you can do this depending on how large that wire edge is. Maybe 5, 6, 7 times back and forth, and it starts flipping that wire edge back and forth and gets finer and finer and finer until that falls off. Once that is gone, and sometimes it kind of helps if you have nails, because dragging, it's a little scary when I see people doing this when they don't have nails. They're like, trying to angle it, like, no, don't do it. But it helps because what happens is you just drag it across, and I know it's one of those like fingers on chalk thing, but it will catch. There's just a little bit of wire edge still hanging on. And okay, so once you do that, then let's go back to this out of here. And then you can use the leather strop. And this is kind of a neat one. This is actually the Guild of Oregon Woodworkers made this for me. And it's really a neat design. You've got a couple different radius, a large one, small one, and then you got the flat. And I just put any kind of compound that you would use on a buffing wheel. All right, anything. There's so many things out there right now. I don't even know. Not sure what brand you have in Australia, but basically you just want something that is going to be creating a polish. And I use this a lot before I actually put it to the stone. Okay, so if I feel like it's just getting a little bit dull, then I'll bring it to the leather strop and see if it will bring it back. Because the last thing I want to do is put it to the stone and go through that process. So if I can get the sharpness back some way, I would do this. But this is really the final step. So if you can see what I'm doing, just dragging back and doing a rotation. All right, so it covers the whole surface of that blade. And then this way on the inside, you want to be careful not to lift it up like that. Right? Do it as flat as possible. And it's amazing what this will do. It will really, really sharpen that up. Okay, now I'm not the most disciplined with the, like, oh, at the end of the day, I'm gonna have all my tools all pretty and sharpened and polished. I basically sharpen them when they need to. In my dream world, like when I'm really organized, I would do that and wake up and spend an hour sharpening. Not happening.
Mm.
Fortunately, I have about 400 tools, so I can always like grab some. Yes, I'm a tool addict, but I've got spares, in other words. So, if one gets dull, grab another one. But I would advise don't do as I do. Um, if you can get into that habit of just touching them up, or when you start feeling like they're maybe scratching on the wood a bit, or just struggling a bit, just put it on the strop and work through that. So, do you want to have anything to share, Olivia?
I will say two things. First of all, I've seen Mary's wall of tools, and
I
I'm
got more. I got more.
very envious. And I love the idea of being like, this one's blunt. I'm just going to grab another one exactly the same that is sharp.
It's spoiled.
Yeah.
Keep going. Because I myself am also not a fan of sharpening. I'm frequently like asked to give sharpening demonstrations, and I learned sharpening from Mary, so it is exactly the same process. But my goal is always to really never actually sharpen my tools because I don't enjoy it. I try to keep them stropped like
Mm.
constantly. Um, because yeah, it's just not something I find fun. I will say that I think it's something people really gatekeep around wood carving and
Mm.
woodworking, sharpening. And like as you've just seen, it's a relatively simple process. You just need to practice it a bit.
Mm.
We won't be nasty enough to give you a really blunt, mangled gouge and say, take this away for 20 hours.
I'll test you. How serious are you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually don't mind if I get in the mode of sharpening and I know that I'm just gonna like, 'cause that's my problem. I have a stack of tools to
Mm.
sharpen, and I basically spend like 3 days sharpening, and
Wow.
I get very sore fingers after that. But you get in a mode and you get the music going, and you just that actually is probably the easiest way for me to do that, because something about breaking away from the carving process is kind of painful sometimes.
Mm.
It reminds me of my husband when he like asks me to, like, I don't know, we had to do like a proposal or something like that, and I'm carving and I'm really into the whole creative process, and I'm like, you mean I have to sit in front of a computer and type something? And it was almost physically painful. So sort of the same concept of when you're in that creative mode and you just want to keep going. It's just hard to stop and do this very sort of rhythmic thing. So, I mean, like I said, more power to you if you can discipline yourself to do that. That's great, because that would be sort of like my dream world carving. But whatever. Not by if it's not done now, it's not going to happen. So
How are we all going? Yeah.
good. Are there any questions about the sharpening?
When you said about going back to take off the wire or the burr basically and flipping it back and forth,
Yes,
do you just go back to the 8,000 stone, not back to the 1,200? Yeah.
exactly. 8,000.
Yeah.
And then so you're really at that very, very fine point when
Yeah.
you're only really at that point polishing. So yeah.
Yeah.
So you start with the 1,200, get the little wire edge, move
Yeah.
to the 8,000, work on it for 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And then you really work between the 8,000 and the slipstone. You want to make sure that slipstone is really smooth too, because I've seen some that are really quite rough and gritty. And
Yes.
you can
Yeah.
actually like reshape the inside of the tool. You can really create a roughness.
Mm.
And you can actually, if you look at that little magnifier thing, you can actually
Mm.
see these massive teeth marks.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, that's what happens when that happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
No, that makes sense.
I used to sharpen solely on Japanese water stones. That was my shift away from those towards a diamond stone. Like they do
Mm.
feel it when you're first buying them, but the water stones you do create
The,
divots.
the groove, yeah. I have a dime. I've got a Tormek for my turning tools, so
Okay.
and
Oh, you're
I just went straight to the diamond stone. When they said I didn't have to true the wheel, I was like, oh, I'm sold. Okay, straight
absolute
to the
winner.
diamond. Yeah. And I used to strop all the time when I first started carving, and yeah, of course, it keeps your edge really nice. And I got super lazy. Like every session, I'd just strop at the end of the session on my knife.
Yep.
And now I don't. And that would probably help if I went back to that practice of you finish your session by stropping. So that it never doesn't get to the tragic, oh right, got to go all the way from the stone. And I've seen different demonstrations of sharpening and everybody's got their own way, but this one seems fairly straightforward. So thank you. Because there's a couple of my gouges that are not happy at the moment. And as much as I've tried sharpening them, they're not sharp. And you know, when you're like, it's your favorite one, but it's lost its edge. Can't just go out and buy another
Beyond
one.
frustrating.
Yeah, and it's like now I'm just using the smaller one of that one because that one's sharpened and the bigger one's not.
But I love a good challenge, so save that one for me. I'll play with it. No, I love your.
So
I do
Yeah.
love it when in a class when people say, "Hey, I've been struggling with this, and the edge of the tool is all wavy, and there's nicks,
Mm.
whatever." I'm like, "Oh,
Yes. Yeah, really, really buggered it. Yeah.
give
No,
me
but
a
it's good
good
to know.
challenge, something I can sink my teeth into."
Yeah, I haven't seen anybody demonstrate the flipping the burr back and forth before you get to stropping level.
Oh,
And
okay.
that, which makes entire sense about what's happening with the metal and the very fine end.
Yeah.
Um, and the magnifying glass, also game changer.
Right.
Yeah, I'm gonna go buy one too.
Look, just
Amazon.
look
I
at
think
it,
you
be
can get
able
it
to
on
see it.
Amazon. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
because
it's
you see pictures of knife edges,
yes.
obviously shown at magnification, but you're just like, everybody's like, oh, look in the light. And, no, just fucking get a magnifying glass and look at it.
But you know what? Also, you can do now with these big fancy phones.
Yeah,
You have like 10 times
yeah,
zoom. You actually take a picture or,
yeah,
magnify the phone. And
yeah.
it's amazing. Like if you have one of those
Oh,
latest iPhones or something,
yeah.
you can do the same thing there. And
Oh, okay.
yeah, and
Good
see how
to
that works. But yeah, it's a new world.
know.
Okay, well, are there any other questions? I think that was pretty much, I mean, if you have questions, about what the course is gonna be, I think we're gonna be doing, actually, John probably would know more about that. I think there's gonna be some weekend things happening, like demos and stuff on the weekend, but that's probably something he can share.
Yeah, I don't know about that yet.
Okay,
Um,
something's happening.
yeah. But do
I'll
any
show
of
up.
you, yeah, you're stuck in Australia.
Yeah.
Any of you have carving goals specifically that you're working towards, like either a style or an actual project?
not really.
Elaine?
Just improvement?
Improvement.
Yep, fantastic.
So all of you
Yeah,
carved a little bit? Have had some experience with carving?
yeah.
Not
Olivia, I study with Harpe. You know
Oh,
Harpe.
beautiful.
Yeah.
You're in good
So
hands.
he's conned me into doing Netsuke at the moment, which I never wanted to go down the Netsuke route, but now I'm into. I don't know why. I think it's because I don't feel the connection to the Japanese practice as such in the historic. But if you just called it miniature carving, I'd probably be like, oh, miniature carving. Yeah. So we're doing that this term. I'm doing Zoom with him. So I've done a couple of in person and Zoom. The trouble for me is I'm kind of half doing my old profession, half doing woodwork. And so to sell stuff, I'm doing wood turning. So carving's number one love and turning's number two. But in terms of practically making any money carving, I'm not fast enough. So I'm very much in the world of, like Mary was talking about, which is when you're in a full-time job, just obsessing about wanting to carve the whole time while you should be doing your spreadsheets. But now I've got to do the turnings, taking me away from carving too. So it's trying to make that balance of making sure I keep my carving practice.
Combine them. Combine the
Yeah.
turning and the carving.
Yes. Yes, I haven't reached that stage yet, but I tell you one thing, I picked up turning a lot faster because of being a carver.
There's a lot of similarities. There are.
Yeah, because obviously going at speed, the
Yeah.
fact when you do it hand carving and slow, your understanding of grain direction and everything to do with how you take the bevel and the blade to the wood
Yeah.
was just, yeah, okay. I still have to remember when I'm on the turning, I'm like, I'm holding it wrong to the wood. That's why this is not going so well. But yeah, no. Again, it's what I wanted to hear you talk because yeah, the deep love for carving. It's just a obsessiveness once you get into it.
Yeah. When I got distracted when I was talking before, I remember what I was going to talk about, and that was basically when you are concerned, sometimes you love what you do and you're concerned about making it as a career. And I thought, oh, am I gonna love this in another 5 years? Am I going to destroy it, or am I going to I'm going to be resenting it and like, I have
Yeah.
to make a living at it, or all of that you sort
Oh.
of imagine. And I was hoping so hard that I would not lose the love for the carving by making it a career. And I have to say, because of the variety and because of things change, and then also the technology that's been sort of introduced, and with this type of thing, interacting and teaching and all of that, it's I can still say 35 years later that I still absolutely love it, and I just love sitting down at my bench and picking up a chisel and creating, and I love teaching. And so yeah, I don't think I'll ever get tired of it. I think after this many years, I'm not going anywhere.
Well, it is one of those you see people, and it is one of those practices you do until you die, basically. And I was lucky enough in back in March to study with David Ellsworth in the States, who's one of the legends of the wood turning community.
Oh,
And
okay.
he just passed away, unfortunately. So I was very lucky to study with him this year. And yeah, he was still teaching right up until the end. He still loved passing on his knowledge. So yeah, it's such an important thing for the community.
Yeah. Well, it is this type of thing, and a lot of the other arts, crafts, really the lost arts, they're kind of fading away. So, I love the opportunity to share it. And because, like I said, my teacher, he was 88,
Mm.
and when he passed away, and I probably can count on one hand how many people are master carvers and really focusing just on carving in the States. And I was probably a handful more in Europe, but really not a huge amount. And so yeah, I'm hoping to stick it and hold on.
I think you'll be fine.
Mhm.
But I do sympathize with that feeling, Charlie, when I first started. I was like, "Ugh, will I ruin this for myself?" And I think because there's always so much more to learn.
Yeah.
And
Oh, it never
each
yeah,
piece,
it never stops quite clearly.
like each piece is new. Each piece is a
Mhm.
different challenge. You're constantly learning new techniques. I think it's just wonderful.
Mm.
Yeah, I think if I ever get to the point where I say to myself, "Oh, I know it all," I better put the chisels down at that point. At that point, I better walk because I love learning, and love pushing myself, love stretching, and just challenging. And I'll always find something to carve and to challenge. Any other questions at all? Okay.
It sounds terrific. I'm quite a novice at it. I'm I run a small building company just out of Melbourne, but I have two little boys that are 9 and 10, and they're old enough now that I'm starting to get a little bit of bandwidth back in my own free time. And I thought that something like this could be a terrific hobby for myself, but also for my boys. And it can also be something that it's been an interest of mine that's almost parallel to the works we do, that perhaps I can start to integrate it into some of my work. So yeah, it sounds exciting, and I like the methodology. That should suit me really well, because I am a novice, and starting at right at the beginning will be where I need to start.
Well, one thing I was going to mention about your children, you know, the techniques that we're going to show you are very, very safe. I mean, obviously, if you follow the directions with it, but basically these long handle gouges that we use, you're always holding on to them, or you should always be holding on to them with both hands and always pointing it away from any body parts. And that's really a very strict thing that I sort of keep pounding into people. If I see people like cutting towards themselves like that, like stop. So talking about children carving, if you enforce that, okay, this is a very sharp blade, always point this direction. Don't hold onto the wood and carve like that. That's where the dangerous part is.
Yeah.
You know, adults or children, but you know, especially children, there's the tendency to just, you know, see what happens here. But you know, that, and we're going to be going over that a lot, about safety and you know, the control of the tools and that type of thing. So that's really, really important. I wanted to mention something about children also. If you wanted to get them started, get them a bar of soap and like just a butter knife, you know, a plastic knife, and they can carve a turtle, which is just, you know, it kind of fits in a square bar of soap, right? So you pour little feet and a little head. But it's a good way to kind of get them started in sort of thinking 3-dimension, and kind of getting them going, and then you just throw them in the bathtub with the shavings.
That's a great idea. We'll definitely do that.
Great.
They'll love it.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I'm really looking forward to it. I was actually in Australia back when I was in my early 20s. I spent a year over there. So it'll be good to be back.
Whereabouts? Which city were you?
Well, I ended up getting a working visa, so I just bounced around. I started in Sydney. Basically, I flew over there with a one-way ticket. I showed up working in hand, and I think I had $50 to my name, and I showed up and I said, okay, I guess I better find a job. And ended up in King's Cross, of course, because that's where all the tourists end up. I don't know if that still do that, but what an interesting way to introduce you to Australia. No, it was an incredible time. So we went from Sydney, worked for 3 months, then traveled around Tasmania and areas, and then we ended up going to Melbourne for 3 months to work. Then took a month and traveled up in the center, Ayers Rock, and then I went to Perth for 3 months. So basically 3 months, and then my visa was done. I had to head home, so I ended up going through Southeast Asia home. But it was a great, wonderful time. And
but you missed Queensland, where I'm from, so
Why we're going up to Brisbane.
right.
yeah, oh no, I haven't even been up there. So and that was where everybody else was going. You know, that was back when people were doing the tours and, you know, the traveling all over. And I never made it up there. I went the opposite direction. So never went up to the Gold Coast. Looking forward to it this time, so I get to actually experience a different part. All right. Well, I guess I don't know
How you going?
if you have any other questions, if we want to close down, or if John is gonna.
Webinar thing. I didn't realize it was then. What are they? Someone?
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to go, Mary, because it's the middle of my working day. I'm actually
Right,
on office
okay.
work this week. So
Yeah,
not
I
at
keep
work.
forgetting. It's
Thanks
like
for coming, Charlie.
No,
like 8 o'clock at
I'm
night.
having a cheeky hour out this morning.
Good on you.
Well, I'm glad you were able to join, and I think we were talking to John about possibly having this recorded and somehow made available. If I know there was probably a lot of people who weren't able to come because it's the middle of the day. So
Yeah.
oh, there you go.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hey, John.
Oh man, what a
Blinding
day.
from here.
It's
Hi, John.
11 o'clock, so I think that the time's up. Mary charges like $400,000 an hour, so we got to. We're going to hold a second Zoom meeting in about 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah, I have to chat to Mary and Olivia to see when they're available again. So if
Okay.
you want to join a second one to have any follow-up questions and stuff, that's cool. Are we done today? Is there any final things you want to talk about? And Mary, you all good? Olivia?
Good. I was going to say, if any of you do have follow-up questions that I may be able to answer for you, feel free to just shoot me a message. That's fine.
Yeah, you can either email Olivia directly or email me at the hello at Wooddust and start working up towards things. And I'm actually considering I've started building a forum on the Wooddust website that I'm a bit of a beginner with. So we might try something like that, which makes it more public and easier to access. So leave that with me. So are you guys all good now? Yeah?
All good.
Harry, May, Olivia. Well, thanks for coming along to this weird little day. Hope the children, and I've got like 8, 12-year-olds out there. Wow. But they're going fine. They're good. It's amazing what they make, actually. So thanks for coming along. I think that's probably it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
love
you
to chat to
very
you
much.
all. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And looking forward to seeing you all in August. And I think we're talking about the next Zoom going over the sharpening of the V chisel. If you've ever tried that, it's a challenge.
Read the article on the website. Yeah, I published that a couple of days ago. So
You did. Okay.
yeah, cool. All right.
Thank
Awesome.
Thanks
you.
very much.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
everybody.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.